let's wait until it comes live. Oh. Hello. I've not seen your paper yet.
Oh, I'm not in the class.
Oh, you're not in the class. That's true.
This is just one place where I get to talk about art.
Okay, good. Well, let's use it.
Because no one else wants to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, mine's not up yet.
Okay, and yours is not up yet.
Yeah, I worked on it a little bit over the weekend, and I found what looks like a shortened version of Gabo's Realistic Manifesto in the book.
Yeah.
Because the recording, I listened to it, but I don't know, it was just kind of hard to follow, I guess, with the recording quality and everything.
Yeah.
I really needed to listen to it 3 times, but I didn't find the time to do it. So I'll probably try to find something in the text that I can use too, because I talk about his concepts, but I don't really back it up too much. And I feel like there's a lot to back it up, because he basically states his ideas about where art should go in Realistic Manifesto.
Yeah.
So the Schenken book?
Yeah, the Schenken book. I have another class at 7, and I have to tweet for that one, so I'm just like...
Was that digital textuality?
Yeah.
Okay. Who's teaching it?
Kim
Knight? Okay, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so really these 2 classes really kind of in a weird way, they really relate kind of, the underlying concepts and narratives of various artworks and exhibits. Really, it's more profound that I'm taking that class.
That's ideally that would be what we're looking for.
Yeah.
Is when the various courses that you take make sense.
Yeah, and then taking Dean's class, like all this is just kind of fueling that, because that's more of a free form kind of synthesizer.
Yeah, experimenting with machines. Yeah.
Yeah, and so all that kind of really.
Yeah. So in general, I started to look at the papers that students have been uploading in 6331, and there's a few technical things I need to say for everyone. Number 1 is the keywords, and I need to say for everyone, the name of the artist should not be used as one of the 5 keywords. Obviously, it doesn't bring in anything new, and also it's a good idea to start looking for keywords by looking at contradicting concepts. So, for example, materiality, and material, unmaterial. But you cannot use material, unmaterial as a keyword. So what you need to do is you need to put that dialectic into work and see where it's going in the work of art or in the papers. So, for example, material, unmaterial, obviously in that first section, duration, motion, and illumination, obviously that goes towards dematerialization. So you will use dematerialization as a keyword and not the 2 words material and unmaterial. Another thing about and I've read them really quickly because they were just uploaded a few hours ago. I think it's more interesting when you are using 2 works of art to talk about the concept that you want to address. I think it allows you to develop 2 perspectives on the concept and to observe how there's a convergence or a completely different perspective on that concept from the 2 works of art, and it brings something more interesting to read. Because if it's just 1 work of art and just feels like you're really drilling onto this, and sometimes the point where you arrive as a conclusion is not as illuminating as what one would want. Another thing about the papers is you definitely need to start your paper with the conclusion. Well, to start working on your paper by starting to work on the conclusion, which is really that final statement in which you wrap up together the concept that you will explore and its manifestation in the work of art. You need to know exactly where you want to go before starting to write.
So that's like,
and that's
at the end, that's our conclusion.
Yeah, and that's implying that the papers should have a conclusion.
Yeah.
And the paper should have a conclusion, which means it should be saying somewhere at the end, I think that the work of art of Naum Gabo here presented really presents a new exploration of reality and transforms our relationship with reality. And that's your statement that you give at the end. And then your paper is the road to it.
Yeah.
Okay?
Kind of has a more stronger path.
Exactly, and as a reader, it's always much nicer to feel that you're going somewhere and not just exploring and adding a little bit of description of the work of art. Another point, do not spend too many words on describing the work of art. If it's to really re-describe the work of art, I don't need that. And I need, just the frame. And then I need only for you to describe what is relevant in the work of art to you, and not the general thing. It was presented in a 15 feet by whatever thing, and give me an image of that, but don't give me a verbal description of it. And the word count is 1500 words, so do not waste 200 to 300 words describing the work of art, and try to use these words to really express yourself about the work of art. But I know all of that sounds negative, but it's not. Okay, it's just trying to give guidance about these papers, and I will give individual feedback on each of the papers, but these are the general.
So you say, would you say maybe, obviously name, title, date, exhibition, first exhibition.
Yes, and what it is.
And what it is, and probably, historical context too would probably be more important than the specific details of it's made up of metal and blah blah blah. So
same thing, historical context, just like the description. I don't want you to talk to me about general art history before that work of art. I want you to find what's relevant in the past that points toward that kind of expression.
So if it's something like if the time period is somehow related to our experience of the work, is that good? Can we include that in our kind of experience breakdown?
Yes,
of the work?
Also, but mainly trying to find in pre-existing works of art something that points to the direction from which that works of art originates. Okay. So what's his name? Flavin, and his constant reference to Mondrian and minimalism. Obviously, you need to talk about that.
Yeah.
Okay. And probably not the rest.
Yeah, not too much. Just
not
a few
too much.
words on it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. It's clear.
But what I want to find in the papers is, so maybe that's something difficult to say because there's something disputable about understanding the work of art. But still, I think that any work of art deserves to be understood. Not that a work of art has a message and a meaning, but a work of art has to be experienced with an intention. It's not just an object. It's something that deserves respect and a work from the viewer. And what I want from these papers is for you to document that process of the work that you have put into going towards the work of art. Okay? We will not survive as a civilization if we do not start paying more attention to works of art. And when I say paying attention, it's really meaning performing an activity while looking at or touching or seeing or listening to a work of art. It cannot be just a passive reception. It has to be an interactive activity between you and the work of art. And I want the paper to really document that activity. And obviously that activity implies some historical research. You do not come completely naive about the work of art.
So we need to respect its time period also.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Of course. All right.
And that's it for the general comments.
Cool.
Is there a sample or template for the paper?
No, because it's documenting something that is really personal to you.
Okay.
Okay? And I, besides the requirements that I have described in the syllabus, okay, and it's clear what you need to incorporate, besides this, it's completely free form of expression. And you're welcome to use the first person subject. I am seeing this and I am, and you do not have to go into these academic tortured syntactic formulas. Just say things the way you want to say them. It just has to be correct English, and from my point of view, I'm not very much demanding about that because I'm not an expert in English language.
And is there some paper you think it's better can share to us?
Yeah, of course, and that I will be able to do it once I have reviewed all of them, but I already have seen one that's great, and yeah, and obviously I can point to it.
Okay.
Yeah, and basically something that you should consider doing, because you have access to all of the papers published in the class. Go ahead, read them. Read them, and if you think that one is great and you would like to have written this paper, that's great. And maybe just out of curiosity, maybe look at all of the papers, and if there's one that deals with the same work of art, try to read this one and compare to yours. It's good to copy.
Maybe emulate is
Better
a
to
more
steal.
is a more
Mm.
a more politically correct word. Emulate.
Yeah, okay, so it's good to emulate.
I'm not a very original artist, so I always say I'm emulating something.
Should just steal it.
Did the steal it, right? Make a sample of it.
Yeah, that's what Picasso said about,
Bad artists imitate great artists.
yeah, steal.
Well, you don't understand why something works until you steal it.
Yeah, well, and that's, to me, that's very interesting, because stealing, it's a really greater act of appropriation than copying. You really make it yours, and that's great.
Yeah, to me, the problem with plagiarism is not that they took the content, but it's that the way that someone takes content shows that they don't understand it.
Mm-hmm.
'Cause
Yeah.
if someone could steal something and do something better with it, then they deserve all of those things that they stole.
Yeah, plagiarism, yeah, that's the awful thing, is that the paper or the work resulting of that is always bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's talk about the general ideas about this paper, or if you have questions for me?
No.
No? So something I would like to dispute just for the fun of it is the idea that the work of art has a meaning,
Yeah.
which is my favorite topic. And maybe and I will comment on this every time I see this in a paper when I see the artist wants to say this or the work of art means this. I will dispute that every time and really ask you sincerely if you think that a work of art can actually mean something, has a meaning. And one meaning. Maybe it has several. Maybe it has none. And every time you talk about what the artist is saying, give me evidence of what the artist is saying in the work of art. Maybe he's just saying nothing in the work of art.
And for this week, our work of art need related to the topics of the different topic.
Yeah.
That was one thing my writers seemed to not understand. Kind of was that it kind of had to be with. I think they chose a work from the section though. They didn't write about any of the themes, and of course that was one of my comments.
Mm-hmm.
So I just thought that was kind of odd. I don't know.
So someone who wrote only on the work of art?
Yeah, they kind of
And
only wrote up. They didn't really get to the themes.
Okay.
And I mean, I mentioned it though. I don't know. I thought that was clear, but I guess it isn't to some people because it's an online class.
Yeah, no, you're right. So yeah, that needs to be reminded that the what you're writing on the work of art has to reveal some conceptual connections between the work of art and the themes presented in that chapter of the book that you're studying. So motion, duration, illumination, and obviously the book is very well curated, and the examples of the works of art are all of them. They have an obvious conceptual connection with some of these themes, which means materiality, temporality, and permanence, existence of the work of art. So don't try to avoid that and use that as a springboard to really write your paper.
So as far as like the meaning, I guess we should probably, stick more with I mean, I don't know, a lot of times it's just kind of not, there's no meaning really, there's just kind of a process happening, or at least in some works, I mean specifically kinetic construction, I can't really think of a meaning for that. I mean, what's the meaning?
No, that's exactly right.
I mean, it relates to motion, it relates to duration, because both those things are, elements that drive the piece, the work, and its experience. But
yeah, and what I'm interested in is to really see how well you transcribe the work of art as something that functions, that does something, and much more than what it means. For example, in the Flavin piece about Mondrian, so the question is about space and spatial organization and illusion also. So how does that work of art really deals with this? And what does that do much more than how much this has to do with Mondrian, but really exactly what's happening in that space where the work of art is exhibited. How is it constructed, organized, and how is it perceived? And then how is this affecting you in changing some of your perception of space in that case?
To go back to what you were saying earlier, I think it relates to the negotiation of the art object. It's about the interaction, and it's not that the object has meaning, but that through negotiating it in form in a general sense, it changes your perception of all meaning extraneous.
Mm-hmm.
Like the art can never have meaning, but it makes you renegotiate the meaning of everything else in a general sense.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the specificity of perception and picking out the various thing that the work does that you begin to negotiate different kinds of meaning. But if it itself had a meaning, even multiple meanings, that would be the end of it.
Exactly. And you're exactly right. And I think that what a work of art always does is really to displace your relationship with your perception and understanding of the world, and really allows you to see and experience other things differently.
Yeah.
A work of art has to change you. And if it does not change you, if it does not change the way you're using your perception and making meanings out of your perception, it's not a work of art. It's just a very simple object. So, and that is assigning really a high task to a work of art. But I think it's very important to be reminded of this. Art is not just free form. Okay, it's something that has the power to change you. If it doesn't, it's not art, and maybe sometimes you can say it's not art for me. And if it's not art for you, do not write a paper on it. Why spending time on things that you hate when there's so many things that you might love? So there's always, to me, in art, and that's why there's always a moment of, I would say, phenomenological epoche in the experience with a work of art, meaning really a moment of a reduction of what's going on to just yourself and the object. And then within that moment of epoche, there's something that's happening, and you start experiencing the work of art within that moment of epoche, of phenomenological reduction, and you start from here. And if that thing does not happen, that means that you're not prepared for the interaction with the work of art. So for example, in music, I can play a piece of music by Alban Berg. But if I play this without preparing you to interact with it, nothing will happen, because you will be stuck with your preconceived idea of what music is or should be, or what the composer has to say. So we would need to work together, and that's why I need that being the receptor and the viewer of a work of art, or the listener, requires work. It's not something that is given. It's something that is acquired. So, talking about Alban Berg, you would need to work with me or work by yourself and try to really make yourself ready for this experience. And the state of readiness is really mainly in bracketing all your preconceived ideas about music, sound, and musical organization. And when you are in a really faithful state of readiness, then you can listen to it. And that's to me the ideal situation of interaction between the spectator and the work of art. And obviously it almost never exists. And that's why there are so many terrible things written about works of art. Because we forget that, yes, in this civilization of the receptor and the one who is at the center of everything, which is the Western civilization individual, we are always expecting that things come at no cost.
Yeah, with kinetic construction, I got, like, I was about to, experience the work through whatever medium, and I figured there should be a video, and I couldn't find one. I searched, for like 20 minutes, and then I couldn't really experience, because of that, going through that, search and not being able to find it. I was kind of a little bit annoyed, and that definitely affected the, I kind of had to come back to it later to really experience it just through an image and words.
Yeah, and I agree that it's one of the difficulties of the class, is most of the works of art you will not be able to interact directly with them.
Yeah, even videos are still kind of...
Videos or stills or reports about them. But still, there's, to me, I think there's something left that you can actually perceive from that. So yeah, it's an effort that is required to go and look at the work of art. And if I can teach at least that you need to be prepared, I think that's enough for the class. Yeah, because we tend to forget that, and I know that some students told me, but when you see a Da Vinci painting, you do not need to have any formal preparation to understand how beautiful it is. Well, yes, you had centuries of training for that. And that's the difference. Contemporary art, you do not have these centuries of training, so it needs to be an individual work that has to come.
Even thinking of fine art, I mean, there's a lot of work involved in that, and just going to a fine art museum and experiencing paintings. I mean, even personally, if you're looking at, say, old contemporary religious-based paintings, there's a lot. Say if you have studied religion or have, practiced that religion before, there's a lot that allows you to bring to it. And, you don't just go there and not think about church on Sunday and look at the paintings. I mean, it's kind of something you got to bring to it. And then, like I know when I saw Van Gogh, I think I read up on him for, already having studied him in, like, elementary school or whatever. I read up on him, a little bit, at least an article or two. And, that definitely allowed me to really experience it for what it was.
Yeah, Yeah, and also I think that all of this talks also about the importance of the historical dimension of a work of art. A work of art is always part of a movement of history, like movement in general, and it's always presenting a phase of that movement at any given time. And that thing is something that needs to be reminded constantly when you're looking at a work of art is how much this is a phase in a larger movement of history.
Yeah, I know in Impressionist paintings, when you really realize that the artist kind of, reach to mirror reality, it definitely, allows you to experience it. I just refer to that because that's where most of my art experiences with artwork come from.
Impressionism.
Yeah, old stuff. I went to a contemporary art museum in Houston. It was free, of course, when I was young, and I'll just say I was not faithful. I was not ready to experience that. I had not.
Just like 95% of the people I'm going, or I would even say 99%.
I was like, I just went to go, and I didn't really prepare myself.
Yeah, it's not Disney World.
And I think I went at a later date with my girlfriend or something. I was prepared to experience it, and it was good. It was really good. There's some constructivist kind of paintings that they had political implications. Some Cuban artists, and it had a lot to do with refugees and stuff, and kind of made from trash and old pieces of machines and stuff.
Yeah,
It's pretty neat.
Yeah.
That required a lot of work, having to understand the political implications of those works.
Yeah.
Because the artist had gone through this type of, escape or, floating across on whatever to get out of a bad situation. So.
Yeah.
Their meaning kind of, he kind of tried to force meaning into it, but of course it means something to everyone else. I can't remember his name. I wish I could.
So he was Cuban, but he was living in the U.S.?
Yeah, I believe so. Or he might have been living, I believe he was living in the U.S. because it was an exhibit at the Houston Contemporary Art Museum. It was probably 3 years ago.
Yeah.
So I can't really remember.
So it was kind of politically. Okay.
Yeah, I mean the imagery was very much kind of like I said, it was melded together through various parts and pieces of machinery, often kind of post-war era, due to the machinery you have in Cuba, and a lot of times trash, I guess, to kind of represent the kind of having to float across the ocean. And as far as meaning goes, there's definitely a political meaning there, but I think you'd have to get an artist's statement to really just say that's what the meaning was. And a lot of the works did have artist statement next to them and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Though still, my girlfriend comes from families of refugees from Southeast Asia, so there's different meaning there.
Yeah.
Even for myself, everything being kind of melded together from like a junkyard, it kind of has a certain meaning to me.
Yeah. Political art is very difficult.
Yeah.
Political art? Yeah, it is very
especially
difficult.
to make, if you consider art from the perspective like we've discussed, anytime you start dealing with, you get very close to propaganda, which is what I consider the polar opposite of art, because that happens instantly.
Yeah.
And then you move on.
Exactly.
It feeds you meaning, even when you're not aware of it, or even if you don't agree with it. But I feel like it is rarely successful when you try to use politicism directly.
Yeah. I've never
Yeah,
really enjoyed.
Maybe political is the wrong word. Maybe more I mean, of course, political because him coming from a oppressive country.
I think art can be a really political act. Like,
Yeah.
It all depends on how they.
Well, I think
more so driven by societal experience.
that the existence of art
Yeah.
is in itself a strong political statement, and maintaining that existence and that these kind of activities, I mean the activity of the artist and the activity that is implied from the viewers of the work of art is a highly strong political statement, and what it, and I cannot detail what there is in this statement. I can just address a few of these political things. Number one is the immense value of the individual and the immense value of the diversity of the individuals. That's the number one statement. And also what's there also is that always implies and search for an element of convergence across the multiple differences, and all of that to me is always present in the artistic experience, and all of that is political, and we could develop a lot onto that strong political dimension of the work of art. That is the same thing that what I said previously about a work of art is always reflecting the general historical movement. And when I say historical, I mean historical with the double capital age, which means it's not just the movement of time, but it's just the entire idea of time passing, and with the and what Heidegger calls the historicity of things. And a work of art is always carrying that, and not just a message.
Yeah, I was watching a documentary about comic books, and specifically black comic book characters, superheroes, masculine black comic book superheroes, and it definitely reflects the times. It's like in the I think 65 was when the first, and he was an African king. He wasn't even like a black American, and I mean it just really the things that they did, I guess, kind of reflects the time. I mean, one of them, the most notably, he was a hero for hire in the mid 70s, and where other superheroes just kind of did it to be good, he did it for money, and I mean it's kind of more relatable, but nowadays it just makes me think, well, we need superheroes for everybody. I think if we look at the history, we'll see like, even today there are all kinds of superheroes, of all different races and whatever, or more so than there were in the past. And I think, whether one person reads Luke Cage, Power Man, a certain way, it's like, oh, he's just trying to get money, he's not as fulfilled as a superhero as we really need as kids or whatever. But it definitely reflects history. It reflects the times. I mean, you see.
Yeah. What work of art have you been?
I'm writing about kinetic construction.
Okay, just like him. Yeah. So what do you say about this?
It's impressing me is that it's using the static object and the using the eyes, the person's eyes, the reversing and to describe the movement. So this is really good, I think.
Okay.
Yes, impressive.
What did you say about this?
I think I read or looked at your paper. I kind of talked, about kind of element of, you know, how it's based on motion. So, you know, it's kind of a function of the optic kind of process that goes on when you see motion, and how it kind of melds space around it due to this kind of perceptual thing. Like I said, I had to go back and, you know, re-experience a little better after I got annoyed and wasn't really too ready to but I kind of said mainly about how it deals with motion.
What? Who was the artist?
Gabo.
Gabo. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I see.
I think there's something deep there that he's going for. As far as I'm not too sure what it is.
Yes, using the eyes, the vision, to describe the motion and the movement. So it's not really to like light, but the motion and the eyes, using some really easy object to describe the motion.
Maybe I'm too critical, but I have a problem with illumination as a theme because we don't see without illumination. So I'm just kind of like, I don't know, I have too critical a treatment of because without light being reflected off surfaces, we don't have anything black. So
Very interesting.
So, yeah, and I try not to think about that when reading the book. I just kind of dispel your, craziness, scientific madness.
Why it's only 11 posts?
I don't think there's only, 19 of us in the class?
Yeah,
Okay, that's...
Somebody maybe dropped it?
Yeah, but it's until today midnight
Okay.
that you can upload your papers.
Oh,
So
today midnight.
so not everyone has done it.
Yeah, Mondays are chaotic for me. I'd be panicking if I didn't work on it over the week.
So what else did you get to say about that work of art?
Talk about the absence of a video of it, because
Oh yeah, okay.
I feel like, it is from 1920, so technologically, not really there to kind of make a video, but it kind of does something to the work. I feel like by having an absence of a video, it kind of gives this kind of mystery to it, almost, It's almost like I wish I could talk to someone who actually saw it in person to experience it through them.
So you have, still photographs of the
Yeah,
kinetic
there's
Yeah.
still there's a still
Yeah.
photograph.
That's what you're working with?
Yeah, that's what I'm, of a kinetic sculpture. Yeah.
That is so fascinating.
Yeah, and I want to just write about that during the experience, but
You should write about it.
Yeah, exactly.
I did for quite a bit.
That's kinetic construction. Yeah.
Probably,
Yeah.
probably 200 words or a little more. I talk about that
Okay.
as well as the
Yeah.
experience.
Well, I've seen a video of it,
I thought I did too.
and what, and the whole point of this is the motion of the sculpture actually creates a shape that does not exist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the whole thing by means of retinal persistence.
Yeah, the persistence of vision causes it.
Yeah,
I kind of
and
hit on that.
but I think the beauty of this is that it's really contemporary with the beginning of film,
Yeah, yeah.
and it really talks to me to this, and it really, for me, this is a very good example of visual music. That work of art is much more visual music than anything, and it relates to the movements at this time in experimental cinema that was called visual music, which means trying to establish a vocabulary of forms and movements. And I've seen a video of it. I will retrieve it and send it to you. Yeah.
I thought there was one when I started writing about it.
You know what the problem of a video of that is that the frame rate
Same as
will definitely alter the experience.
Yeah.
And that gives you an even deeper
there's so much you could
topic
talk about.
to address, because you see that you're stuck in that idea of motion and what happens when you fix time, when you capture that. And really that's the theme that is underlying the presentation of this work of art, is there's no other way to experience it than to see it by yourself. And that's something you're completely entitled to talk about. But you need to develop on this.
Your theme was duration.
Yeah.
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 It's just anyone who does photographs.
Yeah, I said
Exactly.
outside view, a static image of the piece, an experience is evoked, though it seems quite curious and incomplete due to the necessity of the persistence of vision when viewing the sculpture.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because now you have to question what the camera was actually capturing.
Yeah, and
Is
that's
that
another
something you
thing.
would ever see?
Exactly, that's a
And that's
one-time
the only means by
occurrence.
which you can ever engage this object or ever will be able to.
Exactly, and also that can really lead you to something very interesting, and that's where you see what I'm talking about. You see historical movement in a work of art, and here you see something that points to some of the most difficult contemporary problem in virtual reality and hyper fidelity. There's something that you cannot capture.
You can use this art.
Yeah.
I was also going to relate, I forget, spinning shaft.
Yes. Yeah.
Because
Exactly.
they kind of, I mean, I know there's a video of that.
Yeah.
So
And that's the same
it's the
underlying
same kind
idea.
of function.
Yeah. Function.
And the other is called OP art, optical art.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I also hit on how this kind of, well, more in the kind of the respecting the art. I talk about how it's kind of a precursor to cybernetic art in a way.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just in a lot of cyber, and the other piece I talk about, kind of it used constructivism as one of its
Mm-hmm.
you know, kind of inspirations, I guess.
Yeah,
Or, you know, at least the materials it's made of.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't do a comparison and contrast, so that's where I'm
Well,
really going to get
No,
down.
that's fine. Something that's
I left that in the rough draft.
always good and helpful and productive when you're dealing with the work of art is to look for similarities with another one and multiple other ones. So when you're stuck and you're trying to get into the work of art, it's often very useful to... People are loud. It's sometimes useful to try to memorize something from that work of art. So you stay away from it and try to memorize something and try to retrieve that thing that you have memorized into another work of art. And into another one and another one. And then you will see emerging categories of similarities. And then you will start exploring these categories of similarities. And you will see concepts emerging from these comparisons. And then you bring them back into the observation of the work of art, and you will see that this has really allowed you to see something else and something different in the work of art. Really trying to go from okay, that impression that you have, and then the next question is how do you memorize it? What do you memorize from that impression? And then, based upon that memory, you go to another one and try to retrieve it. Sometimes you can, sometimes you cannot. And that really helps finding what's going on with the work of art. And the similarity can be similarity of form, color, impression for you. That's something that you can definitely memorize. It's always good to be able to create connections between different objects. And similarities and categories, similarities and analogies are always very powerful tools to understand things. Okay.
All right.
Okay, so I will stop the